Is it Genevieve?
Well, I think, yeah, I don't know. You're just
Okay.
helping her try to get the body, I don't know. But I just want to know, like, do you need to have work studies on your financial aid to get that position?
Oh.
Because I don't know, because
Oftentimes you do, but couldn't you apply, or you got to get it on your FAFSA, you're saying?
yeah, because I don't have, they said I can't have, they said I don't have no money from work study.
Really?
Yeah, because of,
You do it somewhere else, right?
well, I'll have to do the job like in the cap or something like that. But I was wondering, like, this, I need, like, I need work study to have it because he doesn't say you need work study or anything on nothing.
Really?
Yeah, but most of the time they say,
Because you already have a work study job.
no, I don't.
Oh.
They said I don't qualify for work study. I don't got covered. Remember, they said my mom made too much.
Yes. But my understanding is that the grant comes from grant money, not work study.
For the TA position?
That's my understanding. I could be wrong. But you probably would be able to. What the hell? I didn't even see this. What the hell just happened? I'm trying to find the Kaplan group. And I'm having a hard time. Dr. Kaplan's, or maybe I'm calling him the wrong. Got Brittany and Drew here. Psychology. He had the best follow-up group. Maybe they shut down his channel for some reason. Gosh, man. Like if you say something dumb, they shut down your channel. Maybe that's what happened to him. So the answer is I feel like you could apply to what you're saying. Does that even answer your question? Psychology class, Dr. Kaplan. Maybe it's spelled Caplin. Let's try it. Nope. Kaplan. All right, I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to try to find it on this one.
Did you know that astronauts in space have a hard time communicating without words because their weightless bodily fluids make their faces all puffy and hard to read? Have you heard that Botox can actually improve your mood, and not by smoothing wrinkles, but actually by easing depression? Or that this come here gesture is common in the US, but is considered so rude in the Philippines that it could actually get you arrested? Yeah, all true. Emotions and the ways we express them are strange and powerful things. And emotions aren't just ephemeral psychological phenomena. They affect our bodies and our health. Because so many emotions have a certain contagious quality, our feelings and the behaviors they drive also affect the minds and bodies and health of those around us. This is true whether your emotions at the moment are of the feel-good variety or not. The powers of both positivity and negativity are stronger than you may know. Lots of studies have shown that people with a positive outlook on life tend to live longer, more fulfilling lives than their mean and grumpy neighbors. Fear, anger, and other more difficult emotions and how we handle them are pretty closely related to this thing called stress. And stress is so powerful that it can straight up kill you in any number of ways given the right opportunity. For better or worse, we spend a lot of our lives swirling around like leaves on the winds of competing emotions. Before we can hope to harness these feelings, we first have to understand them.
Have you ever seen these before? Yeah.
What do you think this person is feeling? How about him? And her? What about this one? It's not really hard to tell, is it? Most of us are better than we think at reading nonverbal cues and subtle expressions. The understanding among some, but not all psychologists, like emotion expert Paul Ekman, is that facial expressions are culturally universal. So a Greek, Briton, American, Samoan, or Nigerian would all be able to discern the same basic emotions: happiness, sadness, disgust, anger, fear, and surprise, just by looking at your face. And our expressions don't just communicate emotions. According to the facial feedback hypothesis, they can help regulate our emotions too. The act of smiling broadly, even if you aren't happy, can actually lift your mood, just as scowling can lower it. This is how, bizarrely enough, a recent randomized controlled clinical trial suggested that a little Botox injection in the forehead might actually lessen depression, because apparently it's hard to feel down if your frowny muscles are frozen. Of course, whether your face is paralyzed or not, some people are better at reading your emotions than others. For example, introverts are usually better at interpreting people's feelings, while extroverts are often better at expressing them. And you've probably heard embarrassing stories or even experienced firsthand how different cultures express emotions through particular gestures that are far from universal. For example, in the United States, this is a peace sign, but you don't want to flip it around in the UK. And the iconic thumbs up gesture means good job in many cultures, but if you toss that thumb around in Greece, let's just say you won't make any new friends. But of course, emotions involve a lot more than making faces and hand gestures. They're also about our conscious experience of what we're feeling. So how do we actually feel all of these feels? And how many different emotions are there? Back in the 1970s, American psychologist Carol Izard identified 10 distinct basic human emotions present from infancy on. They are joy, surprise, sadness, anger, disgust, contempt, shame, fear, guilt, and interest or excitement. Others have since suggested that pride should be added to that list, and still others believe that love should be classified as a basic emotion as well. But Izard has argued that these and other emotions are just familiar combinations of the classic 10. Today, some psychologists describe our emotional experiences using a two-dimensional model. The idea there is that any of the emotions you might feel while, like, reading Harry Potter or something are expressed on a spectrum, and as a combination of valence, roughly speaking good or bad, and arousal, excited or not excited, basically. So if you're feeling both really excited and super positive when Harry finally bested Voldemort, you could say you were elated. On the other hand, if you're at that part in Deathly Hallows when Harry, Ron, and Hermione are just sort of wandering around on the lam in a heavy mood, maybe your emotions fell more on the opposite side of the spectrum. In this instance, feeling depressed might be a combination of negative emotion and lack of excitement. So potentially every emotion can fall in degrees on this two-dimensional scale. Like being terrified means you're more frightened than if you're just scared, just as being enraged is a more extreme form of anger than simply being mad. These polarities, positive versus negative, high arousal versus low arousal, affect our psychological states and therefore our bodies as well, because you'll remember that what is psychological is ultimately biological. And when it comes to the physical effects of our emotions, it pretty much goes the way you might expect. Happiness is healthful, while chronic anger or depression makes us vulnerable to all kinds of problems with health and well-being. The good news is that if we're angry or sad, we often overestimate the duration of our bad moods and underestimate our capacity to adapt and bounce back from traumas, even if things feel hopeless, depressing, or stressful in the thick of it. And we've all experienced stress before, sometimes on a daily or even hourly basis. Much like anger or joy, stress can slowly build and simmer, or it can strike suddenly and with great intensity. And yeah, stress, certainly the chronic or extreme type, can be bad for your health, but defining stress is trickier than you might think. Psychologists would define stress as the process by which we perceive and respond to certain events, or stressors that we view as challenging or threatening. In other words, stress isn't technically an emotion. It's more of a reaction to a disturbing or disruptive stimulus. And our reactions stem in part from our appraisal of that stimulus. A person can either roll with or get worked up about a missed flight, an increased workload, or a strange thump in the house. These external stressors typically fall into three main categories: catastrophes, or unpredictable large-scale events like war, natural disasters, and terrorist attacks; significant life changes, things like moving, having a child, losing or getting a job, or the death of a loved one, and then just everyday inconveniences like getting caught in traffic, running late, or feuding with your roommates. Any of these stressful events, big or small, even the good things, can fire up your sympathetic nervous system and trigger that old fight or flight response. In this way, it's important to understand that stress is ultimately natural. You experience it for a reason, and a bit of short-lived stress can actually be a good thing. It can make you active and alert when you need to be, like an upcoming chemistry test might be stressing you out, but that might help you find focus so you can dominate that thing. And in your body, moderate stress can kick the immune system into action to do things like heal wounds and fight infections. It does this by triggering the release of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. These chemical messengers are what get your organ systems to respond the way you need them to when you're getting charged by a bear, or focusing really hard on the gas law for your gas. Also, chronic stress can really wreck a body and mind. Research has shown that abused children have a high risk of chronic disease, and people suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, which we'll talk about in an upcoming episode, experience higher rates of digestive, respiratory, circulatory, and infectious diseases. A lot of these negative connections between your body's systems have to do with the fact that many of its most basic functions, like blood pressure, breathing, body temperature, digestion, and heartbeat, are in part regulated by the autonomic nervous system. We've talked before about how the sympathetic side of that system cranks you up and the parasympathetic arm calms you down, but both those systems also interact with the so-called brain in the gut, the enteric nervous system, which helps regulate gastrointestinal functioning. And it's this brain-gut connection that explains how stress causes digestive problems, because when that werewolf pops out of the bushes and a wave of cortisol washes through you, your body wants to focus its energy on sending blood to your muscles so that you can react quickly, which is good, right? But it may do that partly by shutting down digestion or decreasing the amount of digestive secretions and making your colon spasm. An anxious mind can lead to an anxious gut. Stress is an even bigger risk factor in North America's leading cause of death, heart disease, because it contributes to increased blood pressure, heart rate, and cholesterol levels in a number of different ways. Essentially, when your stressed out nervous system is redirecting all of its energy sources to your muscles and brain, it pulls flow away from your other organs. And one of those organs is the liver, whose job includes removing the fat and cholesterol from your blood. So basically, when a stressed liver can't filter properly, the extra fat and cholesterol ends up circulating in your blood, which can settle around the heart. So believe me, one study monitored the blood cholesterol and clotting speed of 40 male tax accountants throughout the year, and it found that their cholesterol and clotting rates, and thus risk of heart attacks, increased dramatically during the weeks before tax day as they stressed out about finishing their work. And physiologically speaking, it's worth pointing out that some close relatives to stress, when it comes to their effects on the body, are pessimism and depression, which also have been linked to stress and heart disease. Many types of studies have found that people characterized by their optimism, happiness, love, and positive feelings often live significantly longer than their grumpy, dour counterparts. Researchers don't quite know exactly how chronic negative emotional states influence health, but it may be some combination of lifestyle or behavioral factors, like neglecting your health or not taking your heart meds when you're feeling blue, or social factors, like the way that depression can be isolating and thus prevent others from helping you out, or biological factors, like increases in certain kinds of inflammatory proteins released by the immune system in response to stress and sadness. So in the end, while stress may not directly cause disease, you could say that the two walk hand in hand. In that way, it isn't a stretch to say that chronic stress can kill. So go ahead, take a deep breath, feel your emotions, appreciate them, but don't let them run your life. Today, we talked more about how our emotions work and how we use facial expressions to help us communicate. We also looked at the two-dimensional model of emotional experience and how anger, happiness, and depression can affect our health. We also discussed what stress does to your nervous system and how chronic stress can damage the functioning of your biological system. It's possible. To find out how you can become a supporter, just go to subbable.com. This episode was written by Kathleen Yale, edited by Blake DiPastino.
Does that dude talk way too fast?
Our director and editor
Does that dude talk way too fast?
Supervisor is Michael
I
Aranda.
don't think it's stuff. I think him and like other people, like they offer like they offer like free course of college course.
They do, yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Daniel Kaplan and welcome to my channel. I'm a clinical psychologist and I've been a professor for over 15 years now here in New York City. What you're going to find on my channel are videos related to clinical psychology.
So this is the one that I had found, and he had really every stage of a group. So he has the working stage, tried and true theories of group counseling, group dynamics, group therapy, the initial stage, group counseling, pre-group meeting, termination stage is what I was looking for. But I wanted to start with just a short and simple, quick one because we're getting towards the end where it is the termination stage. He's a little dry. Did you decide what graduate school you're going to yet?
Look at IUI, and I've seen, I look at which one
The recruiting.
not recruited, but like, to go to nursing school.
All right, hold that thought. I got a mom call.
Have a passion
Hello.
for health and wellness, inspired by
How's it
nutrition and exercise. Enjoy helping others reach their
I
true
always
potential.
am.
Become an ACE certified health coach and turn your
A video on
Hello and
counseling.
welcome to the first installment of the video lectures. In this week's group therapy lecture, we will talk about termination, or what we call endings. As you may recall in previous weeks, we mentioned that there are different phases of group therapy, starting with the initial phases, where you're just trying to build
Isabella
trust or
very
rapport. Transition is where people start to take risks. The working phase is where people are actually doing the therapeutic process. And then eventually, it's time to say goodbye. So in this particular case, we're going to talk about termination. So what are the goals of ending a group? Well, first discussion you have to talk about is dealing with separation. People develop attachments to both the group leader as well as each other. And then when the group ends, it's kind of hard to deal with that separation. Sometimes the group may have focused a lot in one area and not other areas. So you might have to deal with unfinished business. And the question becomes, what happens if there's a member of the group that had a flash of insight about someone in their family, but they didn't get to fully process it in the group process? Well, you might talk to them about an advanced group if they like the group process, or you might talk to them about potentially transitioning to individual therapy if they're not already doing so. You also want to review the group experience. So one of the goals of termination phase is to say, well, how was it for you?
I would just let it go.
What did you gain from this group, if anything? Is there anything we might change about the group, and so forth? So there's the reviewing of the group process. There's practice for behavioral change. Again, one of the things we said in the first week of this semester was that group gives you the opportunity to experiment with things that you're supposed to do in the real world. So this is an opportunity for practice for behavioral change. Again, you're giving feedback and discussing carry this learning further outside of the group. And we talked about homework, so I know that. So as the group leader, what are some of your goals? So as the group leader, you have to explore any feelings that a person might have related to termination.
Some of them freak out.
We talked about different attachments and transference and countertransference that a person could have. So trying to explore, well, what does it mean that we're saying goodbye? If a person struggles with attachment, saying goodbye could be a very difficult thing for them. So that's that. We talked about the homework assignments and whatnot. Before you terminate, you might want to explore with the group what they thought about one another. I like to do an exercise where each person picks one person in the group and they say, I've observed growth in you in the following concrete way. So by specifying the exact change, that's pretty helpful. They give each other feedback. If there's areas where needed growth is continued, so you talk about that too. We also want to make sure as a group leader that our members know that even after the group ends, the things that were said in group stay in group. Now, because this was a classroom setting, obviously those of you who are not graduating, you're going to interact with one another as part of the same cohort. So whatever was discussed in group has to stay here. And that's the same thing in a group in the real world as well. Now, as I said, there are many times if people did not finish the work in the group, you can offer private consultations if a person needs that service or wants that service. A consultation is different than full individual therapy. Consultation is usually a one-off situation that you tell them, hey, if ever something happens and you want to call me, we can set up a consultation. You could also set up a follow-up group, right? So what I refer to as an advanced group or individual sessions. If you don't feel comfortable doing individual sessions, you might identify referral sources for people to continue their work. And then we evaluate strengths and weaknesses of the group. Every group has strengths, every group has weaknesses. So by the end of this semester, we should be able to ask ourselves, what went well and what would we have liked to see different? And it's not a criticism of me, it's not a criticism of each other or your group leader skills, but it's good feedback for you and for me to think about how we would do it differently. I imagine this semester, because we're doing some of it telephonically, we're going to have some unique perspectives. All right, so giving feedback, here are examples of how you might give someone feedback. My greatest fear for you is blank. If you're going to use that kind of feedback, make sure you have a good relationship with them. My hope for you, that's a lovely one. My hope for you going forward is this, that, or another. I see you blocking your strengths by this, that, or another. These are just examples. I don't need to read them all, but at the end of a group, you might give one another feedback. All right. So
feedback is good. It's like the teacher evaluation at the end of class. How can you make it better?
Excuse me. So also, one of the things we talked about earlier in the semester is that group therapy, I don't know why I'm sneezing. Group therapy is practice for things in real life. So the group is only part of the reality. The goal should be to take the things from the group and make some meaningful change in your everyday life. So it's a means to an end, not the end in of itself. So some of the discussions we might have will give you some insight. Some of the changes you might have might be subtle. For example, I know some of you are more reserved than others, forthcoming, sharing a little bit more, and so forth. And then you could decide what you want to do with the information you discover. And that is a very brief endings lecture. So we're going to stop here, and next week I'll continue with other lectures.
Hi, I'm Zoe Gong. As a traditional Chinese medicine chef and food therapist,
So the other ones are longer, but I just wanted to introduce you guys to this channel. He actually does have a few of those are good for groups in general. I forgot I was using those last semester. I just remembered now, and it's the last 3 weeks of the semester. But he's got here the basic components of group counseling, introduction to helping others, group counseling, the working stage, group counseling and the group dynamics, which we did, the initial stage of a group, and he wrote the book on group counseling. He's written a lot of books, so that's why I'm digging into this dude's brain, because he's taught a little longer than me, and it's dry. It's very dry. But if I can take from some of his components, they're long too. Most of them are like 30 minutes to 60 minutes. That's why I was looking for the
Okay,
short.
so we're going to continue with our group therapy series. And in today's lesson, I'm going to talk to you about the working stage of group.
Does he lead a group?
Yeah.
He could be one of those professors who has never led a group. He shouldn't be teaching it, you're saying then?
Yeah, because like, if you don't got no experience.
You'll find that often with teachers, counselors, and social workers. A lot of people who teach have not practiced very much. Nikita and I are the exception. Like, we have practiced. I still practice.
Yeah, that's just a video. So you kind of have to.
Yeah, well, and I want to keep up my license because you want to know what's current in the field. Maybe that's why they don't practice at Miami University, because they get paid like $100,000, so they don't have to run, you know.
They don't really go no, they don't have to, if they want to do more work, it's really them volunteering. It's really them volunteering.
But I think it puts them at a deficit, because that's one thing I had when I taught at Miami. Nobody else practiced, and I was a practitioner, and that was different. It really was.
I don't know, because like all his stuff is like, oh, feedback and stuff, yeah, so like why would you have somebody that don't
Go off on you?
like, oh, like he said, some people freak out. I'm like, well, why would some people don't freak out? I was in his group, I was like, I'm glad I'm done.
I know, right? I'd be like, I would fall asleep 8 weeks in a row with your dumb ass. Now we're done.
Like I'm there after you off. I'm like, this is bad.
It is interesting when you do like an academic versus a practitioner. I totally agree with you.
Like at that point, do you like, oh, I'm not asking around people, do you actually want to sit here and listen to me? Or do you want to do something with other people? And I work with kids. We can do activities.
That's why I always wanted to be a practitioner. Have you ever seen over where I park?
It's hard.
It's like, it's by the cop station. But somebody in that college has a bunch of guests stay, and they're all parked in every single spot, and they're almost blocking the electronic charge station that I have set up there.
You have a guest day?
They're guests, but I just had to park in the grass next to them and plug in my car.
I think as a university, they should have like electric parking.
I'm the one who bought it and donated it to the university.
And like, but if you don't donate it, I mean, you can probably write a grant.
We could.
Like more.
I do a lot of grants, though. That's the problem. We're already on too many.
Environmental efficiency,
Right.
or have like the environmental science people be like, oh, let's write that.
Right. So here is the last one I wanted to get into. Children's groups.
Those, I wouldn't say those are not fun.
What's that?
Children's group.
Like here's adolescent, infant, school-aged, and toddlers. Kind of like parenting classes, but they're so the benefits and challenges of pets for kids, or keeping our cats, no dogs. I know I love dogs, but right now there is no way we could attend to them and poop every day, whereas cats will poop themselves and I empty the litter box like once every other week.
Who let the dog out? Like,
Right, I know. The hair,
you know, we don't.
crap everywhere.
The only time, okay. It was
I love dogs, believe me, I love
was-
dogs.
When you get your first dog, it's easier to train them for some odd reason. To train them is so much easier. But when you get your second dog, it's like they don't want to be trained or nothing like that.
Because they know there's another dog and they want to compete with them.
Or something, I don't know why. but
Probably
like,
because the other dog's distracting them.
you know, he sleeps. That dog can sleep all day. Charmin can sleep all day, driving on business. The only time Charmin ever comes up to him, and Charmin, he's like really nice, like he don't bite nobody or nothing. He just acts like it.
Right.
But people in the group in the little thing, yeah, he does bite. But he really don't. But when Kane came, he didn't like run or nothing. He just kept sniffing them. But even with that, like my friend brought her another dog over to my house. She was a puppy, and like that dog was nipping at him, biting him, everything. All trying to do was like get up and walk away. Every time, like he doesn't really nip or nothing. He kind of,
Right.
but like he don't do nothing. But Kane, he will nip at you. We're trying to train him not to, but it's he don't. It's like he wants to.
Especially like kids too, I bet, because they do like to mess
Yeah.
with kids.
Kane, I remember I was holding my friend's baby, and then like I guess he got jealous that I was holding him, and like he just kept jumping on me.
Right.
And we had to put him in a room for this thing.
Right.
I don't know why though, like.
So I think it's big to have pets. Then the next question, Brittany can answer this, that when should your children first join social media? I kind of agree with you, but they're going to want on at 10 and 11. Why to call your pediatrician instead of a retail-based clinic? That's dumb. 9 more mental health wellness quarantine tips. Were we still quarantined in a year after the pandemic started?
I guess in case they have to.
Okay, maybe that's it. 8 mental health tips during the quarantine. Okay, so that's, I wanted to do more on the toddler because there was how to feel balanced during COVID-19. Most of them are related to quarantine, which is interesting. 4 tips to prepare your child for shots. What if you don't want to give your child shots?
I mean, that's your choice, but don't expect the school to allow them to come.
Ohio is open access schooling where they have to. Indiana might.
I was in school, it was coming home.
You had to get your shots?
Yeah, but I already had my shots, they just weren't on record. They were blowing her, my school was blowing her phone up, like, you need to come get her. And
Brittany said when. I'm sorry, I'm still listening, but join social media. So when should they join social media? And then when should they get their shots? Ohio is a choice shot.
I mean, that's fine,
Right.
but like, I feel like if you're a choice, if you're gonna choose, let them have that, disease first. And
Right.
then have them come to school.
Like chicken pox.
Yeah, because
Right.
there's some kids who probably never know.
Yeah. Okay. Why social media and apps don't go hand in hand. Oh, and appointments. What? I've never heard of this.
What is social media? I don't see the correlation.
I don't either. It says at Children's Mason, we want every child to grow to their fullest. Your child's well-being is our primary focus at every appointment. We want to use that time to answer the questions, address concerns. We're on your child's team. As a devoted teammate, we love to celebrate every step of your child's life from an infant to a toddler and a teen and a college student. We are excited of first can be in your child's life and capture it being checked with a stethoscope. And with today's social media, it's so easy to share these moments with your family and friends. Unfortunately, we have to ask you don't film appointments or put it on Facebook Live.
Oh. Because it violates HIPAA.
We understand it's exciting to share, but as a teammate, we have to ensure that we protect your child's medical privacy. What is HIPAA? Okay. Okay.
A lot of parents do that.
I didn't know that. Okay. Well, so yeah, I wanted to get into some of those. There are parenting groups. There are different things that are supposed to help with parenting. Oh, there it is. Three classes at HCJFS. Oh, you can't see that one either. Shoot, here we go. I keep forgetting to see the other computer. And this is like, are you taking Karen's classes? This is some of the stuff she would be doing. Guess what? I'll just go ahead and sign up.
Oh, You want to take parenting classes?
Sure. I know. There we go. Yeah, because everybody thinks you have something to learn. I try to stay teachable and learnable. And that's kind of where I'm, they got raising responsible kids, conflict resolution, forgiveness and problem behavior, role of expectations. You think they're,
Six-week class?
what?
It's a 6-week class.
Right, that's usually how long groups are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Do you get a certificate?
Probably. But the question is, are they free? You don't think so? Why is that an invalid email? That doesn't make sense.
You don't do iCloud.
Whatever. So then the Beach Acres one was another one. So, and I got to go over here for it. Isn't that weird how it knows you have a tab open on another device and you just. Do you have Macs?
All right, HP.
But you got an iPhone.
Yeah.
Same difference.
So, I mean. Yeah, but if someone uses it.
Oh, this is a big one. But I'm bored. I have nothing to do. Here you go. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that email. Where is the CAPTCHA? Do they have one of those things?
But
Like the CAPTCHA?
every time I said I was bored, my mom from her room would be like, "Well, do the dishes." That's where-
Oh. Lyric Lewis is here. So we're ready for y'all to come in and lead a group too. So definitely contact me. Anybody who still needs to lead a group, I'm keeping all assignments open. You could do it electronic if you wanted to send me a Zoom link, but just let me know how you guys want to make sure you finish everything. Didn't I have iCloud as an option? There we go. I'll do this one. See, it says something about the CAPTCHA. Have you heard of those? It's usually like a checkbox or something that says, I am not a robot. I am not a robot. I promise I am not a robot. Maybe this will be easier. I'll do it on a social media site. Yeah, but they have groups. So like you could lead a parenting group. Okay. Well, any other questions about Dr. Kaplan is still one of the best. I know he's very dry. Some people edit their videos better so you don't fall asleep while you're doing it.
Say hello to Symbiotica's activated charcoal, a
What's
detoxifying,
that?
nutrient-rich formula that
For your skin?
Welcome to my channel, The Binge Eating Therapist.
I already fell asleep.
I was on the couch. We got pink rug with gray floors,
Yes.
and I'm like, what's up with getting beige couches?
Binge eating therapist. You can't stain them. That won't stain much. If they're white, red could be good, but like a dark color so it doesn't stain. Is this guy at least less boring? He's trying.
Group therapy for beginners. do you say that the greatest benefit for addicts of all kinds is in group therapy?
Because in ideal circumstances, they're supported and
What'd you say? It looks like he drew it himself.
How long is it?
It's 14 minutes. It's way too long. Because you could do CBT also in group. So cognitive behavior therapy. you
Cognitive
guys-
behavioral therapy is based on the idea that certain situations trigger false core beliefs that negatively impact our thoughts, emotions, behavior, and physical reactions. Once we learn how to identify what situations bring upon such destructive thoughts, we can practice developing new interpretations that will then change our pattern of reaction. The therapy is widely used to help people with phobias, depression, anxieties, or addictions.
Mhm.
To show how it works, let's look at Lily, a teenage girl who hates going to school due to her fear of being judged and humiliated.
Sounds like my daughter.
In her first session, the therapist tries to build trust and explains how CBT functions, since the better Lily understands
She said she's afraid of school.
the process, the more likely it is that the
She's
therapy
not
is
at home.
effective. The therapist also illustrates how our brain, in specific situations, follows a fixed path of reason, which gets stronger after years of having the same thought behaviors are based on false core beliefs, thoughts that objectively don't make sense. We acquired these false beliefs when we were too young to interpret others correctly. Throughout the therapy, Lily will try to unlearn these false beliefs and create new mental pathways that will replace the false beliefs she holds of herself with more realistic thoughts. Once Lily understands the process, the counselor begins to ask questions following the Socratic method, a form of argumentative conversation that stimulates critical thinking to draw out false ideas and underlying assumptions. Would you like to tell me why you're here today? Starts the therapist. Because I think I'm not normal, Lily responds. You appear perfectly normal to me. Can you be more specific? I think I'm afraid of people. So you are afraid of me? No. Do you feel socially insecure? I'm not sure what you mean. Tell me how you feel about school. I'm scared of going because they think I'm stupid. Throughout the interview, the counselor takes notes of Lily's answers and identifies the signs of social anxiety based on a false core belief. Lily believes she is stupid. For a homework, Lily should practice introspection. The goal? To find out which situations trigger her negative thoughts. She gets a learning journal to keep records of all triggers and other observations, such as self-talk or interpretations of particular events and people. During the following week, Lily becomes more aware of her thoughts and the physical reactions they trigger. By paying attention to her feelings, she identifies a specific pattern which occurs every time during math class. The moment her teacher begins to ask questions, her heart starts racing and her palms get sweaty. She worries about having to answer the question, about making a mistake, about looking dumb in front of all the others. In her second session, Lily shares her observations and the therapist helps her realize that her cognitive behavioral patterns are false. First, her math grades are great, so she should feel anything but stupid. Second, she explains that there are always more interpretations to the same thing. What to her may look like her stupid face, to others she may just look unhappy about having to answer. The reason she is afraid of what people think is a form of social anxiety, a completely irrational cognitive behavioral response. As the sessions continue, the therapist suggests 3 practical strategies. Through journaling, Lily records her negative beliefs and reformulates them into positive ones she can replace them with. Constructive self-talk helps her to replace a critical voice with a positive one. And she starts exposure exercises, which means Lily deliberately puts herself in situations where she becomes the center of attention. Along the way, the 2 set goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based.
Smart
goals
goals.
give her control over how she progresses.
That's
thus
what we were
helping
teaching
her
the
gain
last
confidence in
PowerPoint.
herself. Over
Specific,
time and with a
measurable.
lot of practice, her brain builds new neural pathways that lead to different, more neutral reactions to the same old triggers. And one day, Lily may even enjoy the thrill of speaking in front of her class. her interpretation of the situation is more realistic and more aligned with those of the others. CBT was initially developed in 1964 by Aaron Temkin Beck. Beck hypothesized that people's feelings are determined by the way they interpret situations, rather than the situations per se. About depression, he once said, "If our thinking is bogged down by distorted symbolic meanings, illogical reasoning, and erroneous interpretations, we become, in truth, blind and deaf."
All right. So the SMART goals are one of the things that they put onto our last PowerPoint. Using them in group is good. So like groups, especially in addictions, the different folks hold each other accountable, and sometimes they can hang out after the group is complete. So that's another good backup with some of the groups. And you don't apply to graduate school until next year, do you? By this time next year, you should be done with it. If you get the application in by November, they are more likely to pick you for money. So just keep that in mind. Remember that. Don't let me forget I told you that. What's that? Yeah, you'll find some good ones. See you guys. You don't want to get your graduate?